Welcome, modern day mystics, fellow truth seekers, James and Justin back again, and today we are going to be reacting to a request. Now, we recently set up our superfan chat so people could leave donations, so they left a comment with a donation and asked us to react to this video called How Did Islam Become a Global Religion? So if that's something you guys out there want to do, you know, like I have noticed that immediately. It was like the first time someone had, you know, sent us a super fan donation. Oh, that helps the channel, you know, anything you want to donate.
It's an exciting milestone. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Was sent by Kabat1. So we're going to take a look at this video here, How Did Islam Become a Global Religion, done by the Epic History channel. And hopefully you guys enjoy it.
Islam, the second most practiced religion on earth, emerges in the 7th century from what many at the time consider a backwater, the desert region of Arabia. The founder of Islam is Muhammad, a merchant born around 570 in the city of Mecca. In about 610, in the cave of Hira, he receives a series of revelations from the angel Jibreel, known in English as Gabriel. These revelations later become the basis of the holy book known as the Quran. The spiritual truth of Muhammad's message is a matter of faith, but his life and the impact of his message are to have profound historical significance. At first, Muhammad preaches privately to a select group of family and friends in Mecca. His message centers on the oneness of God, the need for moral reform, and the concept of Islam, submission to God. In time, the followers of this new faith will be known as Muslims. Muhammad then begins to preach in public and gains loyal followers known as the Sahaba. Muhammad's preaching brings him into conflict with members of his own tribe, the Quraysh. The two sides are soon in open war. Around this time, the concept of jihad begins to take shape. Jihad comes to have two meanings. The first, to strive to live in accordance with God's will, through personal effort and moral integrity. The second, physical acts of war, sanctioned by God. After years of conflict with the Quraysh, Muhammad and his followers prevail. And by Muhammad's death in 632, much of Arabia has joined the movement he founded. One of Muhammad's closest companions, Abu Bakr, is chosen as the first caliph, or successor to the Prophet. It is under his leadership, and that of his successors, that Islam will erupt out of Arabia to transform the Middle East and beyond. Abu Bakr and his successor Omar send Arab armies to attack the two great powers of the age, the Sasanian Empire and Eastern Roman Empire. Both are worn down by decades of conflict against each other, and Arab armies strike like a thunderbolt. One by one, the great cities of the Levant, Syria, Egypt, and Persia fall to Muslim forces. The people who live in these lands are predominantly a mix of Christians, Jews, and Zoroastrians. These non-believers are treated as subjects by their new Arab rulers and pay taxes to them, but they can worship freely. There are few forced conversions and little active preaching of Islam, and so the religion spreads slowly at first. Until now, the Quran has been primarily an oral tradition, supported by various written compilations. The exact circumstances are not clear, but during the reign of Caliph Uthman, the Quran is organized into a single text. This remains the basis for the holy book used around the world today. In 656, Uthman is murdered. The Prophet's cousin and son-in-law, Ali, is elected the new caliph. But others support Uthman's cousin, the governor of Syria, Muawiyah. This conflict triggers Islam's first fitna, or civil war. It is the root of the later division between Shiite and Sunni Muslims. Shia, from Shiat Ali, the party of Ali. Sunni, from Ala Sunnah, the people of the Prophet's way. In 661, Ali is assassinated by a group who become known as the Khawarij. The Umayyad dynasty seize power, moving the capital of the Caliphate to Damascus. In 680, a rebellion by Ali's son Hussein ends at Karbala, when he and his small band of followers are massacred by Umayyad forces. It is a key moment in the transformation of Shi'ism from political movement to a distinct branch of Islam. Shias will look to the leadership of Muhammad's direct descendants. Sunnis will look back to the time of the Prophet and his companions. The Islamic world, riven by warring factions, plunges into a second fitna. But after 12 years of civil war and turmoil, great new conquests will follow. By 692, the Umayyads regain control of the Islamic Caliphate and resume their conquest of North Africa. Islam spreads quickly among the Berber tribes, and it is a Berber convert, Tariq, who leads Umayyad forces into Iberia. En route, he gives his name to Jabal Tariq, the Rock of Gibraltar. He defeats the Visigoth king Roderick and goes on to conquer much of Spain. The Umayyad Empire now stretches from the Atlantic coast to modern Pakistan. Most of its population remains non-Muslim, but there are now a growing number of converts across North Africa, Persia, and Central Asia, known as Mawali. They are treated as inferiors by the Arab elite, stoking resentment. And in 747, rebellion erupts in Khorasan. The Abbasid family, claiming descent from the Prophet's uncle Abbas, claim leadership of this revolt. In 750, they defeat the Umayyads at the Zab River, then systematically wipe out almost the entire dynasty. Only one Umayyad prince, Abd al-Rahman, escapes to Al-Andalus, where he establishes the independent emirate of Cordoba in 756.
Well, we're just about to get into the Golden Age, but the biggest thing that stands out to me here is how messy the spread of any ideology or belief system is, as it, goes about doing its thing. I don't think it's, unique to Islam. Look at the world that we're living in right now. People are constantly fighting and bickering over, which way is the right way.
So glad it's now and not then,
Yeah.
They didn't have any science. They didn't have any, capacity to see that we may have evolved from apes that are territorial. Like, they would just categorize things as right and wrong. We still do that to this day, but we've kind of learned to govern ourselves in a less I don't know, maybe it's not that different actually. We still have plenty of people that go off to war and battle and stuff like that. Yeah. Maybe it was segregated back then too. It was just, I don't know. I wouldn't want to not have air conditioning on top of potentially going off to battle or, brutal outcomes. It seems like we're kind of like bubble wrapped safe in modern culture, in modern, like, sophisticated culture. Even if you're not at the top of the food chain country-wise, you still got a lot of, like, luxuries they didn't have back then. I would not have wanted to be back then. Yeah. How do you speak reason to somebody back then? You'd be like, I don't know. Things do seem like they're bad and we're good, so I guess let's all go fight.
There's no telephones. Everyone's, it's like, those guys got a bunch of swords and we got a bunch of swords. How do we communicate with them that it's okay? Can we even say that? Or will they just kill us if we,
less accountability, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, there's like no documentation, which brought me to the idea of like things getting lost. Like, there's such a long time. Like, I think we fail to see sometimes like how, like, look at the last 100 years, how much has happened in the last 100 years. Even back then, like, where they were like writing everything on books, and then they said it was like way after, I think, Muhammad died, that they like put it all together. And they were like, we have the Quran, and then you had all these wars and people fighting and bickering over who has the authority to be teaching stuff. Like, what got lost in all that? Like, I know in Christianity there's different versions of the Bible. Like, is there someone out there in Islam who'd say like, well, I've got this version of the Quran. It doesn't say the typical version. Like, the Sunni and Shia versions of the Quran, are they both exactly the same? Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let us know.
Anyway, we continue on.
The Abbasids build a new capital, Baghdad, which becomes a great center of learning. This is the dawn of what is often called Islam's Golden Age, with remarkable advances in mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and engineering. Shi'ism, now a fully distinct branch of Islam, continues to spread across the Caliphate, despite sporadic repression by its Sunni rulers. Sects emerge within Shi'ism, including Twelver Shi'ism, Ismaili Shi'ism, and Zaidi Shi'ism. Sufi movements, which focus on inner spirituality and detachment from worldly distractions, also emerge in this period, though their early history is uncertain. By the 900s, much of Persia, Egypt, and Syria has turned to Islam. There are practical as well as spiritual benefits from becoming Muslim. Adopting the faith of the ruling elite offers advantages in business, networking, and status. But these regions still remain religiously diverse, with large Christian and Jewish communities, as well as several smaller sects. For many years, Muslim traders have been crossing the semi-arid region known as the Sahel into Sub-Saharan Africa. Among their purchases, enslaved Africans to be sold across the Caliphate. Following these trade routes, Islam gradually spreads south. In time, as rulers and elites adopt Islam, cities like Timbuktu, Gao, and Kano will become centers of Islamic learning and culture. Muslim merchants also crossed the Arabian Sea and established trading hubs along the East African coast in modern Kenya, Tanzania, and Zanzibar. These ports become centers of commerce, connecting East Africa to a wider Indian Ocean trading zone. Such complex, long-range commercial networks, of which the famous Silk Roads are also part, help Islam to spread deeper into Central, South, and Southeast Asia. In Central Asia, a semi-nomadic Turkic tribe called the Seljuks converts to Islam under the guidance of their leader, Seljuk Beg. The Seljuks carve out their own empire across the Middle East, conquering city after city. In 1055, they capture Baghdad, becoming de facto rulers of the Islamic Caliphate. Under the Seljuks, Islamic political power and religious authority are separated. Seljuk sultans hold military and political power. Religious leadership is provided by the caliphs and Islamic scholars known as ulama. In 1071, Seljuk Sultan Alp Arslan defeats the Byzantine Empire at Manzikert, paving the way for Muslim conquest of Anatolia. But Christendom strikes back. Pope Urban calls for a holy war to liberate the Holy Land. And in 1099, Crusaders storm Jerusalem. Crusader states are established in the region, but remain areas of mixed faith. It is a period of political fragmentation in the Muslim world. Much of the old empire is now ruled by regional dynasties and sects. Seljuks, Ghaznavids, Almoravids, and Fatimids. But in the 12th century, a Kurdish general known as Saladin succeeds in uniting Egypt, Syria, and Iraq. In 1187, he recaptures Jerusalem, a prestigious victory for Saladin and a turning point in the war against the Crusaders. Since the 8th century, Muslim merchants and Sufi mystics have traveled the Silk Roads, deep into Central and Eastern Asia. The number of converts to Islam grows steadily. Among them, Berk Khan, grandson of Mongol conqueror Genghis Khan. Berk is said to have encountered a caravan of Muslim merchants at Bukhara and been persuaded by their piety. For now, most Mongols remain loyal to their animist beliefs. In 1258, Berk's cousin Hulagu launches a devastating campaign against Muslim lands that leads to the destruction of Baghdad and execution of the Caliph. But with time, Muslim faith and culture will conquer the Mongols. Within a century, 3 of the largest Mongol Khanates, from Russia to India, take Islam as their new religion. In Southeast Asia, centuries of contact with Muslim traders is also accelerating the spread of Islam. Around 1267, on the island of Sumatra, the Samudra Pasai Sultanate is founded, which becomes a center of Islamic learning and trade. During this period, a new Sufi order emerges in the Sultanate of Rum. The Mevlevi order, who become famous for their whirling dervish ritual, seek spiritual enlightenment and gain steadily in popularity. The 14th century sees rival dynasties vying for control in the Muslim heartlands. The Mamluks in Egypt, the Ilkhanate in Persia, and the many Turkic states of Anatolia, of which one will soon emerge as perhaps the greatest Muslim empire of them all.
the one point I could just point out there is that with all the warring and the conquering of the land, eventually, the obvious seems to rise to the surface is that you push long enough, then others are going to start to push back. And then sometimes, I think within history, with all great empires, when you spread too far and wide, you tend to fall apart. It seems to be like, because there's too many things to like...
It's like Risk.
Yeah.
In Risk, you spread your army too thin, and then the guy's like, okay.
Seems to be a historical lesson here. Kind of fascinating. Interesting to see that the mystics seem to pop up closer to the European side of things. I wonder if that had to do with kind of like, because they said that a lot of the religious institutions were still inside the empires. They still allowed for Christianity and Judaism to be there. And then I wonder if the mystic, that little mystical branch, because it stemmed up near Europe, it had to do with the environment. I'm sure that's the case. Because of the environment of like multiculturalism and being right next door neighbor to like a more predominantly Christian nation at the time, they were trying to like maybe find some common ground between the faiths and bring them together. And then I was curious, was that the Crusades where the Christians came in and took back Jerusalem for that one little time? You didn't bring up the term Crusades, but I was like, was that the Crusades time period?
When the Pope ordered a holy war?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
They didn't say Crusades, so maybe that'll pop up later. I don't know. But anyway, it looks like we're on to the Ottomans.
Well, I felt like I wanted to say something.
Okay.
Because you mentioned, that one era where they were kind of believing together. Or there was like a cross-pollination of beliefs, or they just tolerated each other or something like that.
It seemed like the whole time, at some level, they allowed for, I think once they took control, it was like they allowed for there to be other faiths within their community. I'm sure there's probably rules around it, but...
Sometimes that's literally what it takes for somebody to get over something, like a life or death situation. Like when survival's on the line, it's amazing what people will put aside, differences people will put aside to work together.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a pretty important detail because it plays out beyond survival. Like it plays out into egoic survival. It plays out into your ideological survival, meaning it is astonishing what the two contrasting things people can carry within just one person, one human identity. Mm-hmm. They'll like allow themselves to do some shitty stuff, but they'll be virtuous in some other area. You know what I mean? What's that about? What is that? You know what I mean? It's like this good thing I do covers this bad thing I do or something like that. Yeah. That is an important factor here. What I'm saying is like look at the mind, look at how schizophrenic the mind is. Not to diss schizophrenic people, but I mean look at that's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm saying is look at the potential within the mind these are holy wars. Yeah. Crusades? A crusade for Jesus. That doesn't even make any sense. That doesn't make sense. Sorry, you can't make that. You can't force that. You can't hammer a square peg into a circle hole. I'm calling it out. Do we care about the truth? Or are you just somebody that shifts the pieces around so that suits you to whatever eternity? You're not ever going to know the truth. You're doomed. You actually got to be willing to die to self to follow any one of these religions, whether it's Islam, Christianity, or Hinduism. Not one of you across the religions got it unless you're willing to go, I don't care about me. That is the answer. You don't even need to know history. You don't even need to know anything. That's the answer. That should be the takeaway.
All right, we continue on.
The 1300s see the dawn of a mighty new Muslim empire. Osman I rules a small Turkic state in northwest Anatolia. Through a series of stunning conquests, his successors forged the Ottoman Empire in modern Turkey. The Ottomans later advance into the Balkans, conquering Bulgaria, Serbia, and Bosnia. Over time, many locals convert to Islam, attracted by economic benefits, legal privileges, and roles in Ottoman government. In 1453, Sultan Mehmet II conquers Constantinople, the former heart of the Eastern Roman Empire and of Orthodox Christianity, becomes an Islamic Ottoman capital. In Southeast Asia, Islam's influence continues to alter the religious landscape. The ruler of Malacca converts in 1414. He takes the title Sultan Iskandar Shah and makes Islam the state religion. Through commerce and alliances, the new sultanate helps Islam to spread further in the region. In 1478, the Demak Sultanate emerges as the first major Muslim state in Java. Meanwhile, in Europe, Granada, the last Muslim stronghold in Iberia, falls to Christian forces in 1492. It marks the end of almost 8 centuries of Muslim rule in Spain. Spanish Muslims and Jews face forced conversion to Catholicism and ultimately expulsion. In 1501, Shah Ismail I conquers Persia. He is the founder of the Safavid dynasty and declares Twelver Shi'ism the new state religion. It is why today Iran is an overwhelmingly Shia country. In 1517, Ottoman Sultan Selim I conquers Egypt and the Hejaz. He now controls Islam's 2 holiest sites, at Mecca and Medina, and declares himself the new Caliph. The title will be held by Ottoman sultans for the next 400 years. In 1526, Babur, a descendant of Chinggis Khan, defeats the Delhi Sultanate. He lays the foundations of the Muslim Mughal Empire that will rule over much of India and its Hindu majority for the next 2 centuries. But elsewhere, there are signs that Muslim power is beginning to wane. The Russians defeat the Khanates of Kazan, Astrakhan, and Sibir, while Ottoman naval power suffers a first major check at the Battle of Lepanto. The high water mark of Ottoman...
All right, good place to take a stop right there. Now, just so you guys know, we had a long pause in between this. This video actually kind of got us all riled up. And it was just, a lot of it has to do, I think, with kind of like, it's what seems like nonsensical competitive empires taking over other empires, ruthlessly, you know, killing others. And I think there's a lot here. I sometimes feel like, I bet you in a lot of this, Islam's kind of like the backdrop. It's probably more political, and like the empire is more like, let's just kill all those people. Probably actually has not a lot to do with Islam in any sense. Is probably more just like survival, and it just is a reflection on our humanity, what it's taken for us to get to where we are today, all the ugliness, all the stuff behind the backdrop that was never dealt with, and then it comes out in these like horrific, you know, wars and battles, right?
Well said. I couldn't have said it better myself. I think that is like the point here. You know what I mean? Because I kind of was upset watching it before, because I'm like, look at this. Look at all this conquest going back and forth. And look at how certain everybody is about their actions. You know, like when there's conquest involved and warring and stuff like that, and territorial war, you got to imagine there was like casualties or people getting hurt and stuff like that. Yeah. All because of like a certainty of something. You know?
It seems like it took humanity, like, we still haven't learned the lessons. We've learned it a little bit better where we are right now, but it seems like it took them a long time to learn the lesson that, like, if I stab my neighbor in the back, you know, their children might come back and stab me in the back. Children's children, all the way to the point that we're living in karma. Yeah. We're just living in repercussionsville. Yeah.
That's what all human history has led to, is just like constant repercussions, that to a point where maybe it even affects how much we can enjoy paradise.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you had to like murder yourselves to this, luxurious paradise you got to, but it's kind of spoiled because of what it took to get it.
Yeah.
So what I'm asking, it's kind of a tall ask. Like, think about it. Imagine telling people, be less certain. You know what I mean? Like inviting people to have more humility, like be more humble and less certain. How popular has that historically been?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe it has in some sense and maybe it hasn't.
Yeah. I'd love to see the day and age where like the type of conquest that takes place is more like, I like the neighboring land and maybe we could join together. So why don't we offer them something that can meet all their needs so that we all want to become one? Imagine that.
Unless we're animals. If we're animals, the answer's simple. Compete for resources.
Yeah.
That's how nature works. It's very competitive. But we've introduced the notions of like, a lot of this is like a holy risk game.
Yeah.
And you've already gotten to but you can't unlook behind the curtain. We're discussing God. Yeah. And morality and virtue spreading in different versions of it, spreading across the earth. So if that's the water that we're in, we need to actually start actualizing some of these religious virtues, which would be like above the level of animal, which is competing for resources, to like, wait a sec, if we're going to conquer a country in the name of love, what are we even talking about here? And what I'm talking about is, imagine what you're saying, that we actually could be honest with each other in splitting resources, and we could non-egoically delegate things to the right places, like clearly and concisely, more hive-mindedly, more like a hive mind and less individuality. That seems to be like we need to return to that. We've been exploring individuality for some time now, and we've become capitalists. But in the future, we might need to develop means of actually being like accountably virtuous and like addressing the shadowy stuff, addressing the stuff that we've been so reluctant to share because it means compromising the amount of shares you get. Yeah. It's like who knows how long that'll take for us to learn that lesson and be like, all right, let's create it for real. Process. Let's get it so that I'm genuinely excited when my neighbor has what I have, or you know what I mean? Yeah. More sometimes even. I'm happy you got more from a genuine place.
Yeah. Well, we still got, like 400 more years to go here before we reach the end. So we'll see you guys at the end of the video.
Expansion comes a century later at the failed siege of Vienna. From around this point on, the two great Muslim empires, the Ottoman and Mughal, find themselves increasingly challenged by internal divisions and external foes. In 18th century Arabia, the reformist Wahhabi movement is born, characterized by suspicion of many traditional Islamic beliefs and practices. It acquires political influence through alliance with the Al Saud family, rulers of the first Saudi state. The 19th century is an age of rampant European colonialism. Its targets include several Muslim countries, such as Algeria, Libya, Egypt, and Sudan. In several places, Islam becomes a powerful aspect of resistance to Christian colonizers. Colonialism also contributes to the birth of a new fundamentalist movement, Salafism, which seeks a return to the practices of the early Muslim community. Some of its followers will turn to armed jihad to challenge those it sees as occupiers and oppressors of Muslims. Following Ottoman defeat in World War I, Turkish leader Kemal Atatürk attempts to steer the country towards a more secular future. As part of the process, in 1924, he dissolves the Ottoman Caliphate, a title Turkish rulers had claimed for 4 centuries. The political earthquakes of the 20th century, world wars, communist revolution, and decolonization profoundly alter the political map of Islam. In August 1945, Indonesia declares independence from Dutch colonial rule. It becomes home to the world's largest Muslim population. As the British Empire recedes, it leaves behind new divisions. In 1947, the partition of India creates the Muslim majority states of West and East Pakistan, which later becomes Bangladesh. In 1948, the new Jewish state of Israel is founded in what had been British Mandate Palestine. In 1979, the Iranian Revolution overthrows the Shah and establishes a Shia Islamic Republic, led by Ayatollah Khomeini. In the late 20th century, historic colonial ties and economic migration lead to the growth of Muslim communities across Western Europe and North America. Muslims become an integral part of the Western cultural landscape. Just as on the global stage, dangerous new tensions emerge. In 2001, a militant Islamic network called Al-Qaeda attacks the Twin Towers in New York. Suddenly, across much of the West, Islam is seen as a threat, vilified by some media and politicians. A gulf grows between how most Muslims see their faith and some perceptions in the West. Tensions between religious and political extremists persist in the West to the present day. There have also been serious conflicts between the state and some Muslim groups in Russia, Myanmar, ongoing persecution in China, and an escalating conflict in Israel-Palestine. These are not the first crises in Islam's 1400-year history, a period in which the religion has shown incredible endurance and adaptability. Carried by traders and conquerors, it has traveled to distant lands, from Iberia to Indonesia, uniting peoples and inspiring the rise of great civilizations. Whether seen through the lens of faith or history, the rise of Islam is one of the most remarkable journeys in our collective past. Its legacy lives on in the 1.9 billion Muslims on Earth today.
That's a big number. 1.9 billion.
I suspect that, I don't think, whenever they throw out the Christian number and the Muslim number, I don't think they're accurate. I don't know where they're getting those numbers. My spidey sense tingles, and I probably would say there's probably more actual practicing Muslims than actual Christians, but I don't think there's as many of them as they point out in these numbers. Like when you say 1.8 billion, 2.5 billion Christians on the planet. It's like half the planet, man. Like I don't see it. I just don't.
Who's taking this census?
I was like, but you know, could be wrong.
In another sense, does it really matter to you or I though? Because here's the thing: somebody requested this. Like a Muslim member of our audience requested this video, and here we are reacting to it. And I say all kinds of crazy stuff. Like this week's going to be wild because I was clearly in a bad mood for every video we watched. So forgive me. But I'm saying you can have any opinion you want, but they tolerate a lot of the stuff we say. And we're skeptical. We're always like skeptical about everything, and they tolerate it. Yeah. So I don't care what reality is because I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Like sometimes you just got to admit, I don't know what the hell's going on. I don't know what a Christian is. I can't really sit there and judge him, or a Muslim or a Hindu. I don't know. All I know is if somebody hears me out, isn't that important to you? If you speak, that somebody actually like takes time to listen to what you say. So that's what matters to me. And good on you. Yeah. And so we appreciate our Muslim audience. Yeah. That's that.
It's interesting to see how the world is expanding, where faiths are growing and rising. I think there's a lot of tension with Western countries and the compatibility of certain Islamic traditional beliefs, depending on where they come from in the Middle East, trying to integrate those into the West. There's been a lot of friction right now. So right now, the world seems like it's trying to sort out what it's gonna do there. I think what we'll see is kind of like some give and take on both sides, where you'll get some evolution, kind of like what happened with Christianity in terms of their beliefs and their practices. I'm fascinated to see where this is all headed and what the world's going to look like in another 20, 30 years as, information, AI, technology, all these things are growing, is reshaping the world that we live within.
It's becoming so intensely weird out there.
Yeah.
Think about what we're doing. Like, man, when we were growing up, you did not have a thing like this. Yeah. This would have just been a wallet back then. Yeah. But like a little TV screen that constantly bombards you with information. That's so weird. And the information it's giving you gets weirder and weirder all the time. Like AI. You ever thought we'd live to see the dawn of it, realistic AI?
Yeah.
And Donald Trump, the apprentice, as a president, and just so many. You're alive.
You get to see so much more now. I feel like in the 90s was like the time where Christianity came under like heavy scrutiny. It was like everything was looked at under a microscope to like point, this thing that your scripture says, this is wrong. This is like, it was, pulled apart essentially. Mm-hmm. And I feel like actually Islam is going through that right now. Right now there's this heavy, where everyone's looking at pulling everything out, looking under a microscope to point out the things that they think are right and the things that they think are wrong. But
you're right. I do remember that. It was there were people that were rose up as Christian debaters to help fight the rising skepticism.
They used to. There's this group of people that would go over all the words of Jesus, and there was a team of people, and they would vote on what they actually, scholars would vote on what they actually believed was real or not real.
Yeah.
And I feel we're getting to see more of that now. I got a taste of it back in the past. I went and I actually saw a debate about the scriptures between Islam and Christianity way 25 years ago, 30 years ago. But now it seems to be on the forefront. Islam is, being highly observed right now. I guess we'll leave it there.
Maybe we're all going to learn. Yeah. Maybe we're all going to learn and everything will be okay.
I think so. Anyway, let us know in the comments what you thought about our reaction here. If you enjoyed this, if you did, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, share this with a friend, and everyone, until next time,
stay spiritual.